Okay, we're live. Um, so, unfortunately, for the people that were, looking forward to me and 50 interviewing a guest, well, basically, 50 Blades of Gray's house, and like all the houses on that street, like had all the power and stuff get like torn up, which like it's really frustrating for me, right? Because like we've had this podcast planned for weeks, and out of all of the days that he could pick, he chooses today to have a hurricane. Like, it's what are your thoughts on that, guest? Go ahead and introduce yourself and share your thoughts on his decision making.
Yeah, I go by Rooster. I was a Army medic. I'm tonight's guest, obviously. But
Wait, you
as
are?
a guest here, guest here on your show, I will say that I'm very personally offended. I took time out of my busy unemployed life to come on this show and just talk some shit, have some fun, and give y'all some useful information. I don't even know what we're talking about specifically tonight, but about whatever. And he up and cancels on us. It's pretty shitty.
Yeah, he just straight up ghosted. Like, I'm offended, right, and frustrated, but also I'm offended on your behalf, right? Like you could be doing like Arma or something right now, right?
Yeah, and it's like I was planning on talking to at least two different people, and now just because I already agreed to do this, I can't really cancel. But now I'm just stuck here with Doug solely, and I'm not happy.
Well, I mean, to be fair, nobody would be. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we did have some. Me and 50 had talked about a few different topics that we thought would be interesting to go over with Rooster. Um, but because he can't make it, we're gonna try to leave those for next week or something,
Sure.
or whenever. Assuming you would want to come on again. Maybe it's a disaster, and you're like just
We'll see how this goes.
right. But I would say, you know, we can get a little bit into medical stuff. Like, what would you say? Um, when should you worry about bleeding? Like, when is it something to be worried about? Like, you might need stitches, and when is it just it looks like a lot of blood, but it's really not?
Well, so to go off your first question there, when you should be worried about bleeding, one, if it is if it squirts, that's how you know you hit an artery. If it's just a constant flow of blood, then you did not hit an artery, and realistically, just some pressure should solve that issue. And then the second point you should worry about is if it continues to bleed, even though you're putting a significant amount of pressure on it. Those are the two cases that I would worry about. If when it should get stitches, generally anything more than about, I would say, half an inch deep, and realistically length isn't super important, but the deeper it is and the longer it is, obviously the worse it tends to be. Um, but usually if it's over half an inch deep, I would generally go get it checked out, because at that point you're starting to get into like muscle tissue and tendons and stuff like that, where you might need some kind of like orthopedic surgeon to actually fix that back up for you, depending.
Okay, cool. I definitely think that that's one of the misconceptions a lot of people have. Like I've just personally seen it a lot, where I mean, either people have talked to me and they're like, "Is this something to worry about?" Which, look, like if you're DMing me on my business account asking that question, you're probably not going to get a timely response. Okay, that's problem number one. But number two, just if you have to ask, it's probably not that big of a deal. That's what I've found. Um, like if you
Yeah, I
hit
mean,
it,
definitely.
go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Like if it's something you're not sure about, just go get it checked out.
Yeah. What about super glue? Is that actually a good remedy, or is that just a myth?
I mean, in a pinch, yeah, definitely. I wouldn't do it on anything significant, just because of it. Well, I guess it really depends. If you can safely clean it out with like pressured water, just to make sure that there's nothing in the cut that might cause an infection, then yeah, super glue definitely works. But I wouldn't want to do it on anything that I wasn't sure about needing stitches for. Because again, it goes back to the principle of like, well, was there any like, is there going to be any lasting damage to like the underlying muscle or tendons or anything like that? And also about the previous question you asked, the head and the hands tend to be very vascular. So you can get a paper cut on your hand and it'll just bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. Um, that's not really something you should worry about. It's just a paper cut. Just you know, v- cuts that aren't necessarily as bad tend to look a lot worse, especially when it comes to like the scalp. Just because you'll bleed for a long time, but it's not necessarily a bad cut.
Okay, cool. I know that I keep, after talking with you, I have like 12 tourniquets that are just sitting around in different locations, between my shop, my house, my truck, all that. Um, just because I don't know, like, what if you're in some kind of rollover crash or whatever, and all of a sudden you didn't get knocked out and you're bleeding a ton from your leg or something. It might be nice to have that within reach.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Tourniquets are just like a great medical device to have on you because like you said, like car crashes happen very frequently. Just accidents in general, just like a lot of times, like we would get people that came in for just like pretty pretty nice cuts, and they were just like washing dishes, and they put just like a little too much pressure on the glass cup, and then it shattered in their hand, and gouged out half their palm or something like that.
Which is a bad thing.
Oh yeah, definitely
Oh, you cut out.
the spot. But yeah, you definitely don't want to fuck up the nerves in your hands, because that's not a fun experience.
Yeah. Um, I had a close call with my sister when I was a lot younger. And what we were doing, so my parents had gone out for like date night kind of thing. And so it was just me and my two siblings at home. And we, for whatever reason, had gotten into this like taking a roll of yarn and you loop it around your palm a bunch of times. And then you tie a little knot sort of that like keeps it in a bundle. And then you cut the other side and you end up with this pom pom looking thing, right? And
Hmm.
we were making a bunch of these for whatever reason. Again, I was probably like 11 or something. I don't know. Yeah, like pretty young. Um, and when I went to do a cut, it what turned out to be the last cut, of course. It snipped like below her pinky finger, like on the if you make a chopping motion, that bottom side, and it cut pretty deep. And apparently, it like just barely like missed the tendon or something like that. But the moment that cut happened, my parents were walking in the door, so it was like perfect timing because that would have been a problem if they were still like waiting on their food to get delivered or something.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Kids like unsupervised kids, like shit, dude. I can't tell you how many times I did it as a child. Just messing around and like got a. Uh, there was one time my grandparents had a welcome mat outside their house, and It had recently rained, so there was like water underneath the mat, but most of the other water had already evaporated because it's Texas, so it evaporates relatively quickly there.
Right.
And
Water's not a
I was
thing
just
in Texas.
yeah, and I was just running around the porch, and I stepped on that mat, and it slipped out from underneath me, and I went like flying into like this. I would say probably about an inch by inch square pole. Um, and I smacked my shin on it really hard, and I was just like, "Oh man!" Like I was probably like 13 at the time, and I was like, "Man, that hurts." That's going to be a nasty bruise. And then I pull up my pant leg, and I have like essentially like cut my leg open on a blunt pole just because I impacted it so hard. And so like my shin was just like opened up like an eyeball sort of shape, and I was just like as soon as I looked at it, I just lost it. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, "Fuck, that's gonna hurt." And then I saw it, and I just started like bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so kids are definitely a big problem.
Yeah, we should get rid of
Um,
them.
definitely
uh,
go the Chinese route.
oh jeez. Can you imagine in the US? Oh my god.
Nah, there's no
Um,
way. People would lose their shit.
yeah, we had talked about briefly about kind of what had just happened in Lebanon today. Um, like that was a big explosion. It reminded me of the 2015, I don't, Tianjin or something, something with a T. Okay, that's all I know. Explosion. All the other one was at night, but it was similar, like in like an urban environment, and it's just a massive explosion.
Yeah. I gosh, I can't even really believe that like realistically speaking, like from the videos that I saw, it was a pretty large explosion. So I will say that like that the most recent ones are saying like there were more than 70 dead, but like for the size of that explosion, like I'd say that's incredibly fortunate. It's definitely going to go up over the next little bit just because of there's going to be people that are trapped under rubble and that die in medical care and stuff like that. But like for the initial blast to only kill 70 in like a pretty densely populated city area, that all things considered good. It could have definitely been way worse.
Yeah, that building that was like right next to it, I was like half expecting that thing wasn't gonna be there. Like at the end, I mean, just if you look at along the ground, the debris expanding with the shockwave, um, I thought that thing was gonna collapse or something. Especially like I don't know what building codes there are in Lebanon. Um, Matthew asks what caused the explosion. My understanding is that it's allegedly a ship that was full of fireworks or something that caught fire. But that, I don't know, man. That was a huge explosion.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying, like that could definitely be the case, but it's just such like a I don't know the correct word to describe it, but just like it's an area of the world that just has a lot of difficulties, I guess, is a nice way to put it.
God, it's like you're trying to describe like a kid who's just bad at math. You're like, yeah, he's
Yeah,
good at English.
I don't know if it's the right word, but I think tumultuous.
Yeah, tumultuous.
Yeah, that word.
Yeah,
It's just a very like crazy region of the world. That like it wouldn't really be too far fetched to say that there was foul play involved, but I think it's way too early to say. And then even once it is later, like is it ever gonna actually like come out like what exactly happened?
right. And it just gets political kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I would say like my opinion, like I'm generally like would generally like side with Israel just because they're like an ally of the US, but they've done like there's been some really bad stuff that's happened. And in particular like the white phosphorus that they basically just dropped on a town. Basically that completely shifted my position because that I assume they discuss like phosphorus and stuff, and the kind of wounds that it causes, right? In medic.
Um. Yes, but also no. I mean, phosphorus. If there's like a direct like a direct phosphorus attack on somewhere, there's really not going to be anything left. Like white phosphorus will burn through steel. So if it hits you, like you're just gone. Um,
I know it
uh,
sticks to your skin and it burns, and so it just keeps like digging a hole deeper. Um, would that like
yeah.
cauterize the wound?
Not really. Like it would probably cauterize it for like half a second, and then it would just like keep burning through your flesh.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of thing. One thing that a lot of people don't talk about with white phosphorus is that like if you don't have any kind of like realistically like a welding helmet, like it'll burn your retinas too. It's so bright, and it burns so hot that it'll just cause like long lasting damage to your retinas as well.
Like if you look at like welding kind of thing, that kind of damage.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you'll see like I think they call them like sunspots, but it's just that point of light in your retina that you just see forever.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't know, man. Phosphorus is really awful stuff, and to drop that on a city, like one thing I remember, just as a heads up, it might get a little bit graphic here for people. But I read this book on basically the atomic bombs that were dropped. And leading up to it, they discussed what's called strategic bombing. And I'm sure you're familiar. Strategic bombing is not bombing in a strategic way, it's like bombing a city kind of thing. And in Hamburg, they dropped a bunch of incendiary bombs and just all over the town. And people would walk out into the streets and like their feet would get stuck to the ground and they would fall down into like a kneeling position. Their knees would get stuck and their hands would get stuck, and then they would just die like that. You know? So to do that to a city is just, it's awful.
Yeah. Chemical warfare of any kind is just it's horrible to see and like to hear about. Luckily, I never had to experience anything like that. Um, but I know like back when the war first started in the Middle East, like they were all wearing their it's called mop gear, which is I forget what the acronym stands for. But it's just like a chem suit basically, and then they'd always have their like gas mask on them. And they were just like constantly waiting for the call that like, hey, gas is coming in or something like that. And man, it sucks because like a lot of that stuff, it's like if you can smell it, like you're already gonna die. There's no point, like
Right.
it's in your system.
Yeah, it's like people who, they like there was something called the demon core, and I believe it was just a gigantic chunk of plutonium that had like a two concave like semi-spherical, um I don't know if that makes sense, but basically it was like if you just took a hollow circle and put it around another circle, or sphere. That's kind of what it was, but those were neutron reflectors, which would reflect it back in, which would cause it, when it was fully enclosed, would cause it to go supercritical, right? And this guy was doing some demonstration, and he had those two halves separated by a screwdriver, which I'm sure looking back on it was a questionable decision. Um, but
Oh, this was in like the 40s, right? So I mean,
something like that. Yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
wasn't very questionable back then.
Right. I'll walk it off, bud. But
Yeah, yeah.
it ended up slipping and it fully enclosed it, so it goes super critical. And everybody describes like a bright flash, and my understanding is there's some speculation as to like, have you seen like the blue radiation at the bottom of like some of those nuclear reactors?
Oh, not really.
Um, I'm gonna put it up on the stream here in a sec if you want to look. It'll be a bit delayed, but I believe there's some speculation that it's this, happening inside your eye. which in your professional medical opinion, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Um, let me let me see. Oh, yeah, probably not.
Okay. I thought it'd be worth checking. But it's like, yeah, once you're kind of in that situation, it's like too late to do anything, you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so yeah, but definitely chemical warfare is not a good thing. But since we're now on like a really horrifically depressing topic, like let's go back to fun stuff like talking about people cutting themselves with balisongs. Um,
Yeah.
you know, it's true that a sharp knife will make a cleaner cut, which will heal faster, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. The less work like the sutures have to do, the better it heals. You have less of a scar. Generally heals quicker, heals better, less chance of like infection. If you have a really jagged cut, there's a lot more. There's a higher risk of infection because it's harder to get into all those like tiny crevices to get everything out. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing you do when you like go into like an ER or something to get a cut sutured is they irrigate it. Heavy irrigation. Generally, they're going to do like at least like half a liter, but it's one of those things where it's like over irrigation never hurts. So they're generally even
Unless
for
you're
small cuts.
drowning.
I mean, if you can drink it all fast enough, you might survive.
Cool, cool. I'm good at drinking very quickly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they'll irrigate it out. So, the cleaner a cut is, the easier it makes really everything. So, yeah, if you're going to cut yourself, sharpen your knife first.
Now, is there like what causes nerve damage in quotes if you have like a really sharp knife? Like how does that work?
I mean, it's just about as simple as you would think it is. So, like in your hands, or more specifically your fingers, the nerves run parallel to the sides. So they start like in between the knuckles and go like up the sides of your fingers. Um, So, I mean, if you just cut deep enough, you can sever the nerves. It doesn't have to be a necessarily sharp knife. Depending on how you're cutting it. Like if you just go like perpendicular to like how the nerves run, then like there's a good chance that that'll happen. They can heal on their own, but it takes a while and it never really fully heals. You'll always still have like a slight numbness, or sometimes it can even be like a painful feeling.
Interesting. Um so it's more about the depth of the cut than like the sharpness of the knife.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
As long as it'll cut skin, it can cut through those nerves.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there is something like people who lose their limbs or something like will still feel pain in the non-existent limb. Um Something like that.
Yeah, phantom limb. I don't know a whole lot about it because I never really got to experience too much of that personally. But yeah, I definitely have heard that where they'll feel like an itch on like their foot when their leg's been taken off from the knee down or something like that.
Yeah, that's so wild,
It's
you know.
pretty crazy. Yeah, the brain is insane, man.
Yeah.
There's so many like intricacies to everything in our bodies that it's like insane.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like I've always found psychology to be fascinating. Um, Although I assume that's not really something that would be relevant for being a medic, right?
I mean, it depends. What are you referring to, like in terms of psychology?
Um, More so like personality disorders and that kind of stuff is what I find interesting. Um, in certain other categories of psychology, not so much like the actual chemical goings on. I don't find that as interesting. But I just feel like what I've learned from reading would not be useful. Although actually I should have waited until 50 was on because he actually has a degree in psychology. So
Oh
maybe
wow, yeah,
maybe we'll save that for next week. I'm
yeah,
dumb.
we
So,
definitely, definitely. But yeah, psychology does it does play a part in our training. I won't go too far into it, so we can save it for next time. But like we deal with like depression, PTS, um, the side effects of PTS, which can go all the way into like schizophrenia, paranoia. It can lead back to like depression and anxiety, stuff like that. You have to deal with a good bit of it. Again, me personally, I didn't, um, just because of where I was. I was stationed in a hospital in the ER, so every once in a while we would deal with like depression and stuff like that, and there would be people who dealt with PTS, so we'd have to be a little bit more careful about what we do and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely the psychology of combat and just injuries in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat. Just like you were in an IED and then like boom, you have PTS like that. Like it doesn't have to be anything like super traumatic. Just the experience itself.
now,
Yeah.
just in case people are not familiar, what does PTS stand for?
So it used to be referred to as PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, but they changed it to PTS because PTSD has a negative connotation to it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, so I don't have it personally, so I can't say. Um, I would like to say that most people that have PTS don't really care how it's defined, and they're more just worried about like the side effects that come with it. But maybe so. I can't
I
really speak
think
for them personally.
I think people who actually have it is so debilitating to them or some specific area of their life that they would themselves say like of course it's a disorder, right? Like that's the definition of disorder is like it's like you can have, I don't know, some kind of like narcissistic tendencies or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have narcissistic like personality disorder or whatever it would be called. It's whether or not it actually is impacting your life. And if, like, for example, you have some incident driving a car or something, I don't know, like you're driving a Jeep and you hit a mine, right? So, like, every time you're trying to drive off road after that, like, you just can't do it. Like, I think people suffering like that would be, of course, it's called a disorder. It's just people who want to claim that they're, suffering from it that are then using that, in my opinion, for political reasons.
I mean, realistically speaking, you're right. I would consider a disorder to be anything that has like a negative impact on your life. You know, obviously PTS isn't something that you can just like get over. It's something that just stays with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And it doesn't have to, it can just be like you're just living a normal life, and then one night, you just have like an episode. You have nightmares or whatever. A big one that a lot of people talk about. I don't really think it's considered to be PTS in and of itself, but it's definitely like I think it might as well be. It's like one of those things where it's like once you get back from like a deployment and you're driving down the road and you just see like a piece of trash on the side of the road and you're like, oh shit, that's an ID. You're still in that state of mind, and I think that is PTS. I don't really know if that's considered it, but eh, it might as well be. But we're getting too far into psychology. We can save that for next time.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. You had some cool stories or funny ones. Well, I guess funny in when we were talking about. I don't know that it would be like funny in that it's a fun topic, but just like people who had somehow gotten like really they took a ton of drugs or something. Um, right, and then they said, "Oh, it was the first time." Wasn't there some story like that?
Oh man, all the time, all the time. I don't know if it was just I feel like it's probably an issue at like every like big like post or base or like whatever camp. Um, but yeah, heroin was a big one, man. There would we would probably get a couple a week. They would just be like found in their car, like overdosed on heroin, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's the first time," and it's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, I can see the marks on your arm and stuff, but yeah, definitely first time. Gotcha."
What causes, like, I know on my right arm, the, I don't know what the vein would be called, but the one, that like runs in is most visible in your elbow on the inside.
Yeah, the AC.
Yeah, that's like really visible on my right arm. And I was making some joke during like a blood drive because I can't shut off my joke making circuits or whatever. Because I'm just stupid like that. I'm immature. I was like, oh yeah, sorry, I just been doing so much heroin or whatever. And they're like, well, actually, if you had been doing that, it would make it incredibly hard to find. They said something to that
Yeah.
effect. What causes
Yep.
that?
So essentially, what you get is they're called track marks, which is just like scar tissue from all the needles entering your arm. We actually get a it does eventually go away because obviously we stop after a while. But when we're in training, we actually get like a I guess like a low or like a minor form of track marks, just because you know you're constantly getting IVs in training because that's just what you do. So yeah, we end up with track marks for a little bit, but it's essentially scar tissue on the vein. If you heroin can do it. Even if you just like donate plasma for money, people tend to have scar tissue build up in their better veins, um, just because they're constantly getting poked there. So it's constantly just rehealing and rehealing and rehealing and rehealing, and it definitely sucks. But I tell you what, man, if you can't find a vein, a heroin patient will be able to tell you exactly where to poke.
That's actually
So
kind of funny. That makes
all things
sense.
considered, they're pretty decent patients.
Interesting. Um, yeah, I just found that it caught me off guard because I just assumed if you're always putting stuff in your veins would just be like, I don't know, bigger or something. I know that that's a stupid thing to think, but that's just like subconsciously what my brain must have been thinking. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's definitely stupid. You're stupid.
okay, fair.
Um,
Look, I'm.
but
See,
yeah, no,
that's a professional medical opinion that I'm stupid, right?
as professional as I can be, yeah.
Okay,
My
cool.
EMT is still current, so
So,
I guess I am a professional.
cool. Well, professional in quotes. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I've seen how you run people over in GTA, but
That's different. I'm not
yeah.
trying to help people there.
The You had told me some story about like it was the most cheat codey thing I've ever heard in like a medical sense, which is like you were like, oh yeah, my friend has some long run he has to do in the morning, so I'm giving him IV hydration or something. It's like that's cheating. But what was that story? Like, do you remember what I'm talking about?
Mm, not specifically. I think that was probably the time that my friend Scouting was. He had a PT test in the morning or something like that.
Yeah, that.
Um, but yeah, no, that's pretty common practice. I mean, uh, there's two ways to hydrate. You can hydrate before, or you can hydrate after. Generally, in the army, if you're going to hydrate after, you're going to be in the ER with a needle in your arm. Because you're probably going to heat cat. A lot of people
What
do
is
that.
that?
It's
Heat cat?
uh, heat casualty. You like
Oh,
overheated. Anywhere from like the far end, like heat stroke to like just like feeling dizzy. You know. But yeah, no, that's pretty common practice. IV fluids are um, they use them for a lot of things: rehydrating, lowering core body temp, uh, pushing meds. Just because like you can't just like push like straight morphine like you can in video games. You're gonna push it with fluids just to dilute it. Um,
do you mix that
Stuff like that.
beforehand, or is that done in two separate IVs?
No, it's done in one IV. Like the the tube is hooked up to the needle on one end and the bag on the other, and then the morphine is injected in the tube about halfway down. So
Interesting.
as the fluid is draining into your body, it just slowly pulls that morphine in. It's called I think drip feeding.
I was given morphine once. Which do they still do that in like civilian like medical situations? Like somebody I thought had told me that they had like gone away from it or something for some reason.
No, no, they still do morphine.
Okay.
In combat we don't.
Okay, so I just mixed it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just something stupid. Like I got my wisdom teeth out, and they gave me Toradol, which is an NSAID or whatever, the thing that you want to take with food. They hadn't told me that, and I don't know that it even said it on the bottle because like I generally follow the instructions pretty well. And after I'd taken that for like a week, and I wasn't eating much anyway because of the wisdom teeth, um, you know, I started getting these like pains in my stomach that would like it's like they would just hit all of a sudden, and it was very very bad pain, just on the scale of things, right? But I ended up going to the ER with that, and they were like worried that it was like appendicitis or something. I got like an ultrasound, and by the way, I wasn't pregnant. Okay, in case I know people
Nice.
were wondering.
Congratulations.
Yes, I took Plan B every night. Um, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, because I never stop asking questions because I'm like autistic. I was just asking tons of questions, and so that's where I heard like a lot of the stuff that I told you.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, no, morphine is definitely still given in in like hospitals and stuff like that, and even I don't know if paramedics do it. I'm not too familiar with like the civilian side paramedics. But yeah, in combat we don't really do morphine anymore. It's just something about it being like really addictive. It doesn't last as long, and I think it also has to do with cost, like per I guess like per treatment. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, now we use like there's one that's called OTFC, which is let me see if I can remember, oral transmucosal fentanyl citrate. So it's fentanyl. It's called a God. They just call it the pain lollipop. Um,
I
yeah, I
like
mean
it.
that's what it looks like. You know, it looks like a little lollipop, and you like you tape it to their finger and you put it in their gums, um, and it just sits there so they don't swallow it. Um, and and then we have ketamine, which is it in previous years it's been used in like veterinary practices for like God, I think it was like a horse tranquilizer. Obviously we use like a significantly smaller dose, but it just worked a lot better. And instead of it just like numbing the pain, like it's a fuck, what is it called? I can't remember the term. Disassociative. That's what it is. So essentially, you just kind of like your eyes kind of glaze over, and you're just like high as a kite and existing outside your own body. So like you're still in pain, but you don't feel it because you're not really there. Um,
So like every day for me, basically.
yeah, essentially, if you have like low IQ.
Okay, shots fired. Um, but yeah, um, I don't know. I find this stuff fascinating. I know that it's a little bit off topic from knives, but I think it's close enough that it's fits the stream. Um, Especially, I don't know. There's some kind of something about the fact that maybe I guess what I'm thinking is like combat is associated with weaponry, and so are knives, right? So there's some kind of weird overlap there. Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
but how many times did they give you a butterfly knife in the army as like your primary knife?
Ooh, I can't say they ever did. They might somewhere. But obviously, when you're in training, they don't give you anything cool. And then I worked in a hospital, so they didn't give me anything cool. So
Oof. We
Yeah, no,
cared.
it's kind of weird because like they teach like in basic training like they still teach hand to hand combat, and I use that term very very loosely. Um, it's more just like grappling, not even like hand to hand combat, just like grappling. Um, and then like very like maybe like an hour of like how to use your rifle as a weapon, or like or like a hand to hand weapon. Obviously, it's a fucking weapon, but
Right, just
and
grab by the barrel and just whack.
yeah, yeah, but then, like, you go to, like, the Marine Corps, and they have, like, full on, like, pugil sticks and stuff, which is, like, the padded toothpicks that you, like, whack each other with that, like, it's supposed to simulate, like, you're out of ammo and you're, like, you're using your M16 as, like, a blunt weapon to, like, jab and hit with it. I think that kind of, like, shows, like, a huge difference in just, like, the jobs that we do, you know? Marine Corps is always just like they're fucking there, and then Army's usually just there as like I don't want to say backup and like put down the Army like that, but like the Marines are always like the first in. If there's hard shit going on, the Marines are there. The Army has definitely taken more of a back seat in the last couple of years, unless you're like fucking like the top tier like special forces guys. They still do cool shit, but the army's mostly on like peacekeeping operations now.
I had a friend. I was actually pretty good friends with him. I tutored him in programming back when I was at the university, and he was an army ranger, and he just like disappeared a few years ago. I tried to reach out, didn't hear anything back. I don't know what ended up happening, but like I think he clearly was like mentally impacted by whatever he had ended up doing. Um, he just never seemed happy. Um, I don't know. He was a really good person, but
Yeah,
it.
this kind of goes back into like this psychology of like combat and stuff. But guys like him, like if you're trained to be special forces, you are trained to be a fucking warrior, and that's it. Like you are a fighter day in and day out. Where guys like me, if you're just in like the regular army, like they teach you how to be a soldier, which is fine, and then they teach you a little bit about being, like a quotation mark warrior. They teach you how to like shoot your gun and stuff, but like, the majority of the people in the army aren't gonna have to deal with that. But like, Rangers, Green Beret, I mean, really, just any kind of even just standard infantry, although not to as much of an extent. Those guys are bred to be fucking warriors, and once they try to like get out, uh, it's hard, because it's like the civilian world doesn't really have need for people like that. You can't just go back into the civilian world and be a fucking a warrior. It just doesn't fit. So
Right.
you're bred to fight. You're bred for war. You're bred to take lives. I mean, that's like the
Right.
baseline of it. You're bred to take lives, and then you try to go back into like you're going into a different world where all the skills that you've been taught and all the instinct that you've been taught, there's no use for it. So it's rough. Um, that's why a lot of those guys stay in either till they retire or till they die, because there's just really no other place for them in the real world.
Well, that's kind of the worry that I had. I know that he had some legal trouble. Like he was walking back to his car or something, and somebody started picking a fight with him or something. Which let me just spoiler, he's not the right person to pick a fight with. Okay, like yeah, I that was a bad judgment call by whoever that was. But I think he got some charges or something, and I don't know like what ended up happening, but it was clearly like psychologically disastrous for him, and so it's always sad because it's like you get like a glimpse of the person that they really are, right? And but then you also see what's like happened, to that person. And I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but that's kind of, I'm trying to describe how it felt to me when I was talking with him.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where it's like you give so much, you do so much, you see so much, and then you come back to the civilian world, and then people really have no sympathy for that. Or not really that they don't have sympathy, but they don't understand. Like even me, like I've seen some things, but like I will never understand combat because I was never in combat. It's just how it is. But I can have sympathy for that because I know people that went through it, and I've helped, or I've taken care of people that have been through it, so I have a little bit of an understanding. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like you do all that and you come back, and then you're pretty much told like, well, you're not in that anymore. Like you got to get out of that mindset as if it was just that easy. It's like you have depression, just fucking be happy.
Yeah, I definitely get that kind of a sense. It's like you spend all this time and money, training somebody to be on high alert at all times and ready to respond with violence or something. Then you put them back in society and say, "Oh yeah, when somebody comes out and tries to pick a fight with you, you're supposed to just like, turn the other cheek." It's like that. It's just you can't. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's definitely rough. Um, but we like before, we can touch more on this in the future.
Yeah. Um.
I don't want to ruin all of our future topics tonight.
Fair enough. And it would be really interesting to get 50's perspective on it. You know,
Yeah.
it's yeah. And the thing is, like, I personally find it offensive. Like when you have people. This is getting a little more political, okay? But like when you have people that are going around telling everybody, like, "Oh, I have this horrific mental illness, so you need to defer to me," kind of thing. Essentially weaponizing, taking actual pain that other people have, pretending that you have it, and then using that to gain power or deference, you know? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely instances where like PTS isn't just like a combat related thing. It's definitely more prevalent from there, obviously, especially in the last 20 years because we've been at war for the past fucking 20 years. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely instances where PTS can come into play in just like normal situations. Even just from something simple as like a car accident. But yeah, I definitely feel that like PTS needs a stricter definition, because it's like I didn't like this happened to me, and I think about it a lot, so I must have PTS.
right.
Eh, it's just weird. I don't really like it either. I think it's unfair to the people that actually went through something traumatic, and then you're just taking something that was pretty trivial, and you're just being a baby about it, and you're turning it into something that it's not.
Right. Like if you actually had any kind of, and by the way, it used to be called like shell shock and stuff. Now you can't
Yeah,
even
so,
call it
soldier's
PTSD.
heart.
Say again?
Soldier's heart is what it was called in like the very beginning, back in like the Civil War. Shell shock, and then I think it pretty much went from shell shock into like, okay, this is an actual thing we need to worry about. Let's name it, PTSD.
Right. Which, then having the D in there, gets things all unacceptable. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I said earlier, I mean, it's like I feel like the people that actually deal with it don't really care that it's labeled a disorder because it definitely does have a negative impact on their life. But I guess some fucking doctor somewhere decided that like, you know, if we call it PTS instead of PTSD, then it won't have as negative as a connotation to it. But it's still like it's the same thing. People still know it's the same thing, um, and it is what it is. It scares a lot of people because they don't really understand it.
right. Um, uh, yeah, like I still go back to, I think somebody suffering from that, like, they don't care what it's called, right? So like as soon as somebody starts complaining about it, you just know that, well, clearly it didn't impact you that much, because instead of working to resolve the problem, you're going around telling everybody that you have a problem, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. A lot of people that have this, they don't want to talk about it because it brings back painful, powerful memories that they don't want to dig up. They spend the rest of their lives trying to keep it down. However, whether it be through drugs, alcohol, whatever vice they have, they try to keep those things down. They don't want to get help for it because it it's hard to do. I don't really think there is a way to get over PTS. It's just it's there.
Yeah. The only thing that I've, found or heard, um, is like exposure therapy kind of thing. Like if you, I don't know, had some close call in a car or something driving down the freeway, it's like you want to start driving down the freeway again and confronting it, because if you never do, if you're always like just driving down back roads, you never really get over it. And if anything, you just get more and more isolated from it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I also think that with PTSD, sorry, I'm gonna just keep the D in there because I'm not a nice person.
sure. Yeah, no, go
Um,
for it.
like, I don't think you always get it from stuff that happens to you. Like sometimes it's stuff you do to other people, and it's kind of like the problem is people in normal society are just incapable of really thinking about the situation, right? Like it's like if somebody's running at you carrying an IED and you're there with your friends and it's just some woman or something, it's like you can't allow yourself and your friends to get blown up, right? And it's like, but you still have to live with that, right? I don't know. And that's completely different from like the My Lai massacre, where you just have soldiers going around shooting up a village of, you know, men, women, and children. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, we gosh, have you ever seen the that one meme that's like weak men create
Yeah.
hard times create strong men create good times, and good times create weak men. We're definitely in the good times create weak men section, unfortunately, and it's going to be a while. Um, and that's not to say anything. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily relate to like the PTS. Doing what you have to do to survive is not weak in any sense of the word.
Well, I
But
think
I
you were
think
drawing
it's
it back to how society is like disconnected from what people
yeah,
are actually experiencing.
yeah. We've like gosh, I think the generation that went through Vietnam definitely caught the very beginning of it. And then after Vietnam, it's pretty much been downhill. I think we're starting to get to the point where we might see like an upturn in our situations, hopefully. But the way politics has been going, fuck, dude, I'm not uh very optimistic.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I think my prediction for what's going to happen, and I think I probably told you this, is and again, I personally think Trump is going to win the vote, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins the vote because the other side is not going to accept it. It literally doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because both sides are convinced the other side is cheating, and so you end up with the other side challenging it. There's lawsuits and stuff. It gets delayed until I believe December 12th, where it gets off to the House. And because we have the delegate count, I say we, the Republicans have the delegate count in the House, Trump Trump wins. But that still is going to be considered illegitimate. Like I think there is going to be violence, like
Yeah,
on a
this
larger
this next
scale.
election is gonna be rough. I uh I don't I, honestly I can't even predict how it's gonna turn out. And I know that sounds weird, but it's like I feel like Biden is completely and 100% incompetent. Just like the things he said. and the way that he acts is just like what the fuck is this dude's deal, you know? And then you have Trump, who, don't get me wrong, in the I think it's been roughly 4 years. Uh, oh yeah, the election's about to happen. It's been 4 years. I'm fucking retarded.
It's
Um,
okay. We all
but
know.
in in the 4 years that he's been president, I feel like he's done a pretty decent job. Before COVID hit, like we were in a good upturn. And obviously that
Unemployment.
wasn't
Yeah.
unemployment was down. Everything, like our economy is doing good. Uh, it's not really something you can predict and not really something you can help. So I don't really pin that on Trump. Um, but at the same time, just some of the things that Trump says just makes him so fucking unlikable that it's just like, fuck, dude. Like,
That's right, but that's what I find so puzzling is you don't have people referencing that. They just continually come up with more and more things that they make a big deal about, where it's like if you just took the actual things that you didn't misrepresent, that you said you didn't like about Trump, that's a valid criticism. Like you don't have to go way above and beyond and completely discredit your position because your position is like it's fine to not like Trump, right? It's just you have to be honest about it. You know what I mean? In my opinion.
yeah. So I'm not really sure. I would really love for us to be able to pick a different candidate, like a third party or something. But it's just never going to happen. At least not till we're in our probably 40s or 50s, honestly.
If we're even still alive, let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like the political state in current year is left and right. There's a I wouldn't say a small percentage. There's a decent percentage of people that agree that, like, hey, this two party system's wrong. We need to figure this out. But there's too many people that are on one side of the line, and they won't compromise for anything.
Right. They just won't have a discussion. Like and it's insufferable to argue with them because they don't argue honestly, you know?
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but it's the older generations. The younger generation is starting to wake up and realize that, like, fuck, dude, we're fucked either way. This election's a sham. Like, no matter who wins, there's going to be unrest and there's going to be violence and there's going to be issues that spring from it.
Well,
Whereas
sorry, go
if
on.
people just no, yeah, if people just stopped looking at left and right, and instead just looked at the bigger picture and the individual policies, um, I think that would definitely help things. But that's not going to happen until this is going to sound really bad, but like until the older generation dies off, because they're the one that kept proliferating this two party system.
Well, I personally think it's more the media which they literally profit off of the violence and stuff because they get clicks, right? And
100%.
oh yeah, and so it's like they just continually like they make bigger and bigger deals like up in Portland where they're like, "Oh, they're unidentified officers." It's like in the literal picture you posted, they have like the badge number and police and like the unit visible. Like it's
Yeah.
literally in the picture in your article, right? And then that's why the judge who was going through it was just like, this is ridiculous. Um, but I think that it's a problem with the media that is it benefits from people getting increasingly polarized, right? Because they just get more clicks from their party if they just make a bigger and bigger deal out of stuff, you know?
Yeah, the media is definitely a big issue. And it sucks because, like, there's really no real unbiased media, right? Like, the best way to get unbiased news is to watch both and then just see what they both agree on. And then that's the truth. And then everything else is just opinion. And it's so dumb that's how the world works.
You shouldn't be able to tell what somebody's political leanings are from their article. Like if you can tell they're a pundit, not a journalist, right? A journalist is meant to tell you the facts and try to like their goal supposedly, allegedly, is to have you understand what happened. The pundits then sit there and opine on it, right? But what you have now is you have like no journalists. You just have pundits who sit there and like they tell you what to think. It's so fucking obnoxious. Seriously. Like I swear to God, man, like the next, like from now on, if I'm reading an article and they start telling me what to think and how to interpret the evidence, I'm just going to assume it's the complete opposite. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it's no better in, gosh, I don't know, the more that I think about this, the more that I just like I don't really have any hope for the future because even like college, man, like higher education, the place where you're supposed to be able to figure out your life, figure out your opinions, and grow up as a person. Like I don't even consider myself necessarily right wing. I definitely lean more right, but I try to stay neutral as much as possible. But it's like it's so dumb just to see that if you have any kind of non-left leaning opinion, then you're just gonna have a terrible time in college because every fucking institution is just left or wrong.
Right. And it's, dude, I like, I'm just saying this now because I so don't care about my university as like an institution that I don't mind throwing them under the bus. Okay. But the administrators are pushing the social justice kind of narrative. They're literally shoving it down everybody's throat. You know, like they they had this class. It was, you know, UNIV 101 or whatever, and it was just meant to like tell you how to like register for classes and stuff. But they literally had 3 days. Okay, and it went like this. The first day, they had like, I don't have to describe how this person looks. Okay, but it was like a diversity and inclusivity officer or something like that. Okay, which is
Gotcha. Yeah.
right. And they're like, oh, you know, like sexual assault by men is like a real problem, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there like rolling my eyes kind of thing. Like, yes, like, but then the second day, they're like, okay, well, if you don't do anything, then you're complicit and you're allowing it happening, right? You're allowing it to happen, right? Sitting there like trying to use guilt. And then the third day, and it wasn't just me, by the way. It was my friend as well who walked out with me. But they were like, you literally have sexually assaulted women if you aren't speaking out about this. And it's like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you tell me that I'm a literal rapist, right? Like, and I'm certainly not going to be paying for that, right? It's just the most ridiculous thing. Like, why would you send, if you're a parent, right? Like, and you're trying to decide, should I suggest that they go to university or not? Why would you send it to a place if all they're going to do is just turn your children into babies that complain about everything for $200,000?
Yeah. Now, I will say that to in certain situations, I agree that being complicit it makes you as guilty, but that's like very specific situations where like you see sexual assault happening and you do nothing. Not not this whole shit like if you're not a fucking outspoken critic, then you're a supporter. Like
Right.
it's so
Like,
dumb to see the fucking binary mentality of this shit.
right. And they now will say it's not enough to just not be racist, right? It's like, no, it literally is. Like, the definition, like, you can't say, oh, well, not being racist is no longer not being racist. Like, no, that's not how it works, right? Like, oh my God. It's just dishonest, okay? And you can tell how this is. So in my capstone project, it's a really long story, so I don't really want to get into it. But basically, this guy he's a stereotypical guy that goes around and acts like he knows what he's talking about. He uses big words, you know, like he'll sit there and it's like he's name dropping programs like Wireshark or something, right? As if he knows anything about it or how to use it. He sits there and like uses his big mouth to create this big list of things that we're going to do as our project, right? And he literally does nothing. So I'm sitting there arguing with this guy saying like, that's way too complicated. We can't do that in 3 months, right? With all the other classes. And he sits there and insists on it. So that's literally what we ended up having to do, because the professor didn't want to argue with him. I ended up literally writing every single line of code. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, they literally wrote 0 lines of code in that entire project. And the school made him distinguished graduate. And he spoke at graduation.
Group projects are fucking shams.
Dude, it's a complete joke. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still better to be in my position than in his position, right? Because I actually was the one who did it, and I actually can sit there and like go through, right? But it's really, irritating to have the university, which is supposed to be, like you said, this, institution for critical thinking, basically, sit there and just like give somebody distinguished graduate because they sucked up to the right people. Like, it tells you everything you need to know about the university.
Sorry, I was chewing a rice cake, so I had to mute my mic there.
Fatty.
But yeah, it's gosh, dude, I don't even. I'm glad that I'm going to like a. I wouldn't say it's like a trade school. It's a college, but it's like I'm going into a program that I don't have to worry about anything like that. At least I hope so. Um,
You can mention what it is if you want. If you don't want to, that's fine.
oh no, I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's like I'm going to, I'm going to be going to the fire academy, and realistically speaking, I hope I don't have to deal with any of this like political pandering, because it's like we're there to do one thing, and that's it. And in my experience, uh, people that work in these kind of professions don't give a shit, right?
Right.
Whereas in a lot of other professions, it's like I guess they kind of have to. Like even in the tech field, right? Like if you want to work in the tech field, especially in like big cities, you're probably gonna have to keep your mouth shut on a lot of political opinions, just because of how the industry is.
Right. And you have to sit there and they expect you to agree with them, or oh my god, dude, I'm telling you, there are a few professors. So like, I've found it, and actually tell me after I sort of go through this if you have a similar experience. But I've found that at any institution of learning or whatever, there's like a very small number of teachers or professors or whatever that are like, they actually care, right? And they're actually honest and like quite often are very intelligent, right? Those people are fantastic, and I'm still friends with some of those people from the university. But it's, I don't know, man. I guess there's, these people are not necessarily like really special, right? It's not like there's some kind of Nobel Peace Prize winners or something, right? They're just like professors that are honest, right? They don't sit there and try to just tell you stuff in an unbiased or in a biased way to get you to reach a certain conclusion because they want you to hold that position, right? That's crazy to me. That is what's distinguishing the good teachers from the bad, is whether or not they're honest.
In my experience, that has been the case as well. Like this was in 2014, I think. I had a professor. Yeah, I guess he's considered a professor. Um, this was in college, and he was. I forget how long he said he spent in, but he spent like some amount of years in the Marines as infantry. So he was just like kind of like cut and dry kind of dude. Really cool. Like I really enjoyed his class. He taught programming fundamentals. So like not necessarily programming in itself, but just like how programming works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I like to think that like in more recent years, if he's still there, that he would not be able to speak as freely anymore. And this is at like a technical college teaching programming. You
Right.
know,
Right. Why are we hearing about like gender theory in, like my C programming class? Like what? Now, okay, to be fair, I just picked like a random language that I like. Actually, my C, the professor I learned C from was fantastic. Not that he would ever listen to this, but I that was just a bad choice for the example of a bad class. But yeah, like I definitely think it's a better move to do what you're doing and go into trade school unless you're doing like specific STEM fields. Then it might make sense to go to university. But if you're going to university for some kind of like cultural something, like just save your money, please.
yeah, and it's kind of funny, and it goes into like the same kind of thing, but probably it was probably last month, some point last month, they tried to ban the use of the Confederate flag on military bases, which I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really see the big deal about the Confederate flag. If you want to use it for your Southern pride, cool, go for it. I don't really necessarily like it myself, but uh, the military did kind of bend the knee to that. But at the same time, they pretty much banned like everything that wasn't like a service flag, like like sports flags bigger than like those, I don't know what they're called, but like the small like triangle
oh yeah,
ones.
what are those called?
I have no. I think it starts with a T. I think it's like something like. But they banned like sports flags that are like bigger than those. They banned the rainbow flag. They banned the Confederate flag. They banned like I think they banned like the "Don't Tread on Me" flag and stuff like that. Like pretty much anything that wasn't like service related. They're like, yeah, you can't openly display it. If you want it to be in your room, fine. But like if somebody else sees it and it becomes an issue, then like you got to take it down. And it's one of those things. It's like I wish they didn't even have to do it in the first place. But like if it's gonna happen, then they did it the right way. Right? They did everything.
Right.
If you can't have this, you can't have that. At the end of the day, a piece of cloth is a piece of cloth. Fucking deal with it.
Well, I don't know, man. That's some pretty hurtful cloth. Like, can you deal with those wounds? Well, I guess you can because of your medical experience. But dude, what if I'm walking down the street and I see a flag that's like says all sorts of stuff about aluminum being a good metal? Like, I might collapse or something, you know?
You just might, dude.
Yeah. Um,
And yeah, dude, I don't know. I just wish I was kind of talking about this with some of my friends the other day. I really don't think that this would never happen, by the way. I really don't think that a mandatory service in the United States military, whatever branch you want to do, I really think that it would actually be good for the country as a whole. It would never happen. There would be way too much uproar about it. But it's like, sorry, I got a piece of rice in my throat.
wow.
Um, yeah. So there would definitely be an uproar, but it's one of those things that like going through basic training isn't necessarily difficult. It's a big culture shock to a lot of people, and it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy. Like it's definitely got its troubles, but it's one of those things where like it puts you in a different mindset about things. Like it teaches you that like everyone is on the same playing field, right? Nobody cares what color you are. Nobody cares your gender. Nobody cares your religion. Nobody cares anything about you. You're a piece of shit just like everyone else until you prove otherwise.
Right. Like, can you do it or not?
Yeah. And
Right.
I think that mentality has just completely left like everything in our culture, right? Everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to feel important. Everybody wants a fucking medal. Everybody has to feel like they're just important in some fucking aspect. And it's like you don't. you don't deserve to feel important. You're not important, and you shouldn't feel important, right?
You have to earn
Until
it.
you do something that's important.
Right. And the funny thing is, you'll find that the people who actually have accomplished stuff, like they generally don't go around telling everybody, right? Like they don't. Dude, the biggest giveaway is when somebody goes around and tells you how good they are at something. You know, like it's like if you are, then it's probably the only thing you're good at because like you're busy telling me all the stuff you're good at, and it's like you only listed like 5 things, right? That's thing number one. But then also, why do you have to tell me? It's like sitting there like telling me like, oh, I'm really good at like not being an alcoholic, man, but then your Listerine keeps like disappearing, you know? It's just
Yeah.
it's the most ridiculous thing, in my opinion. So I don't know, man. Like I definitely think there's some kind of, I don't know. There's almost something about being in the military that, like, the blue collar kind of like behavior would kind of help to get rid of this like elitist kind of thing that you find with some people who've like gone to university or teach at university, where they just think that they're smarter than you, and it's like some people, it is so fucking obvious that they think they're smarter than you, and they'll just sit there and like talk down to you and be completely oblivious to just how snooty and arrogant they sound, and it's like you don't really find that so much in like blue collar work. Like most of my friends are blue collar. Like I only have a few friends that are like do any kind of white collar stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's I always think it's funny when people like look down on the military, and it's like, sure, I get it. It seems like it's easy to do, but like less than 1% of the entire population of young adults even qualifies to join the military these days, right? There are people that look down on the military and they couldn't even get in if they tried because they have whatever, like a felony or some like health issue or whatever. And it's like, cool, dude, talk shit about it, but you can't even get in. And then on top of that, it's like you could join the military at 17, no matter the branch, no matter the job, or yeah, 17, 18ish, and serve 20 years and then retire with a pension and all these benefits and free healthcare and on and on and on and on and on. And then the same people that look down on the military are working in their 40s. They still have 25 years to retirement and they're fucking working their ass off every day. And then I'm there at 38. I just retired and I don't have to work another day for the rest of my life.
Right. Well, and it's also, there's something about like what you had described there that I think like people, it's like they know that they couldn't do it, and so they kind of want to shit on it, so that it's like the that like Aesop's fables or whatever, where the fox or something was like, oh well, I'm sure the grapes were sour anyway, or something like that, right? I think it's that kind of thing. Like they can't do it, so they want to disparage it because then it doesn't really matter if they're not able to do it, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, there was one point I was thinking about. Uh, I don't know. I can't remember now. Um,
That's fine.
but
We
yeah,
can we can just keep talking, and if you think of it, then interrupt me.
yeah,
Or
yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry, we're not we're not really talking knives here, but
yeah,
I
I
don't know.
mean,
Sometimes it's nice to like kind of get off topic.
yeah, I definitely find it entertaining, I guess, personally, to just kind of talk about whatever's interesting, even if it's not knives. Like, I don't know. Um, I, some of this stuff, it's like you and I have talked about in just like while we're like playing or something, right?
Yeah,
But it's like kind of interesting to put the theories out there and, you know, just see what happens, because like, I don't know. It's just you can just think of all these things in your head or whatever, but if you never really like get feedback or see what people say, then it's, well, it just stays a theory or whatever, or at least it has no feedback. Um, what about though with the Fire Academy? Matthew says he's really enjoying the stream, and then he put two forward slashes. So
I don't know what that. I don't know if he meant that, or is
it's
that some kind of like.
probably he's probably just bullying us. It's cyber abuse. No, I don't know. He probably tried to hit enter and missed it twice because he.
Gotcha. I'm gonna ban him.
Yep. Go ahead. Right click, delete. No, I'm just playing that. But the like, so with the Fire Academy, and maybe this actually, let me just mention a specific example. In Seattle, they had all these, like George Floyd protests, or maybe it was in Minnesota actually. Actually, I think it was in Minnesota, but they burned all.
Are you talking about the one where they attacked all the fire trucks?
No, actually, I didn't hear about that. I was going to say that,
okay. Yeah. Sorry,
somebody,
keep going.
Yeah, they burned down a bunch of buildings, all small businesses, right? Yeah, maybe you see now why I'm biased, right? But like, they burned down a pawn shop, and they like found the guy. They charged him with arson or something, and then they found a body in there. That guy's in trouble. Like, he's not in a good situation.
Fuck.
But yeah, so how much overlap is there with like what you've done and like firefighting as far as medical stuff goes?
Some I would say well, a significant amount. So generally, like even if there's not like a fire, firefighters show up to like car crashes, just in case, stuff like that. They generally help with like first responder type, just everything really. So like medical care and stuff like that. Um, Realistically, the only reason I'm going to the fire academy is because up here where I live in the mountains of Colorado, um, most EMS is just attached to a fire department, um, and there's generally you just swap off between like being on an ambulance and being on a fire engine and stuff like that. So if I'm going to go be EMS, which a paramedic, like which is that's my goal, um, I might as well just get my fire certificate and be a firefighter as well. Um, but that being said, there's a decent amount of overlap, I would say. But there's also a lot that I don't have any experience with, and is definitely going to be kind of a culture shock. Um,
Yeah,
Looking forward to it though, definitely.
I wanted to, before a bunch of stuff that we've talked about in private, like I had wanted to fly helicopters doing either EMS like type, like life flight type stuff, or firefighting, because I always wanted to help people, right? Um, but that ended up all collapsing. But like, it is kind of interesting that you're now going into firefighting and EMS and stuff.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. I'm kind of dreaming about the future, about what I want to do. I'm not 100% sure yet, but where I live is like incredibly high altitude. Like I currently I live at like 10,000 feet, which is really fucking high. High altitude is considered anything above 5,000 feet. So take that as you will.
I'm
And
at
I'm
about 5,000 something feet, 5 or 6,000.
yeah, and I'm from Texas originally, like Central Texas. So like very, very uh, I, not. I was very close to sea level. That's how I want to put it. Um, so this is a big, big change for me. Like even just small things. I'm still kind of getting used to up here. I've been out here for a couple months, but obviously when COVID hit, I wasn't going to the gym. So I'm kind of getting back into that, but it's like it's difficult, man. Stuff is difficult up here. Um, but I know that like once I get back in shape up here, like I'm gonna be in the best shape of my life, and that I'll probably ever be, just because of how much more difficult things are. Um, So in the future, like I really want to look at going back into the military, probably on the reserve side, um, but doing something similar in the medical field, but something a little bit cooler, than just working in a hospital. Know.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of cool that you were talking about like being a helicopter pilot because I've been looking at getting my helicopter license just because I think it would be a cool skill to have. But man, it's expensive.
Well, if you get into it, like, let me know. I mean, I passed all the the writtens and all that jazz.
Oh, sick! Yeah,
And I've spent a considerable amount. Seriously, like probably the one topic that I'm just gonna say this because we're like an hour and a half in, so nobody's gonna get this far and hear me actually say this. But like, aviation is probably the only topic where, while I don't act like I don't know, like know what I'm talking about or something, like I've spent far more time on aviation stuff than anything else by like an order of magnitude kind of thing. And I know that like when we're playing GTA and stuff and we were grinding some missions and stuff, like I'm sitting there like reading about crashes and stuff. And so aviation is probably the one topic where even if somebody supposedly has credentials or something, if what they're saying doesn't make sense, like I will call it out kind of thing because I've just spent so much time on it that I guess have the confidence or whatever that I normally would just keep to myself.
yeah, yeah. I was only looking at getting it's just like the private license, I think it's called. Um, just to like start out with and see about that. But I think it would be so cool to have a pilot's license up here. And then possibly, I could get my like commercial license, and there would definitely be opportunity up here, whether it be like search and rescue type stuff, tour guide type stuff, really anything. Um, I think it's really cool though, and I could use my GI Bill, but I'll probably use that up doing this. So we'll see.
Well, if you want to do like life flight type of stuff, you would need to have your private, your instrument, and at least commercial. I don't think you would need like an airline transport thing because you wouldn't be carrying that many people, but I might be wrong on that. Um, you know, but that's it's definitely pretty expensive. I personally would feel a lot better like if you were flying planes as opposed to helicopters because helicopters are just a complete disaster. Like, sorry, a complete disaster. Um, like there's some memes I had posted that was, like it was like a dictionary definition type of thing. It said like helicopter and then like noun and then like 10,000 rapidly rotating or rapidly moving parts flying in close formation around an oil leak or something like that, right? Um, they're just a disaster. So
Oh yeah, I mean they are. I know they're harder to fly, and I know they're more expensive to learn and stuff like that. But at the same time, like where I live, like planes aren't really like a thing. You need something that's vertical takeoff. So I'm just kind of I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life out here, but I will tell you I fucking love it out like in the mountains. It's fucking beautiful. Um,
yep, yeah, I've
so
seen dude. One of my friends is always posting these pictures of like hiking, and it's always him, like his wife and his I don't know like 8-year-old kid or something or 9 or something like that. Um, and it's literally all of them. Like it's not like he's just hiking solo. Like somehow this guy is out hiking in a bunch of different places, like constantly. It's kind of funny. Like he's the only person I've ever seen who like they have something about liking nature in their bio, but they actually spend time out in nature. Like they're not just putting it there because they took it like an environmentalist class or something.
yeah, that's the kind of cool thing about like where I'm located. I'm located in like very central Colorado. So like no matter where I want to go, it's roughly 4 hours. So if I want to go to New Mexico, 4 hours. Utah, 4 hours. Um, uh, Arizona might be a little bit further, but probably not not more than 5 hours, just because it's at like the very corner. Um, but there's like a lot of different places that I could go and experience things. So it's a really cool location.
Yeah, and great views and all that.
Oh yeah, yeah. The only problem is the tourists. They're fucking back now. COVID's, I guess, calmed down a little bit up here, so they're fucking everywhere.
You need to get one of those, those little like pressure sprayers that like you put, I don't know, juice in there. You do the little pump thing, and then you go around spraying it, like you use it on plants or whatever.
But on people,
Right,
spray
but
people with pesticides.
no, but spray people with like coronavirus. Like get a bunch of sick
Jesus,
people to cough into the thing and go around and spray all the tourists, and they'll go back home and be like,
I
I
think
never should
pesticides
have
would be
done
less.
that.
I think pesticides would probably be easier in court than if I used chemical warfare on people.
Well, you would just have to make sure they couldn't trace it back to you. Like put like a label on it that says, I don't know, like water or something.
Not
So
Corona.
right, yeah, not the Rona. Um, yeah. Like put a gigantic caution sign, like this does not contain the Wu flu or any variation of it. Oh, what are your thoughts on the coronavirus as a medical professional?
So I think I think that the steps we're taking are necessary, but I also know that there's not much that we can really do right now. No matter how much care we take, the virus is still going to be here until there's a vaccine, right? People are still going to be getting sick. It's still going to be an issue no matter how much care you take. Um, and people talk about how like other countries have like you know have like gone into like remission, or like they've nearly like gotten rid of it, but it's like you can't really compare a country the size of Italy to a country the size of the US with the population that we have.
And with the
um
system of government, like one of the things that I've found is like you'll have people saying like, oh well, look how well China has done. It's like, yeah, China literally like welded people's doors shut. Oh, like
well, and on top of that, we don't know how honest they're being. you
right,
know
right, yeah. It's like yeah,
yeah,
but
let's just take them at their fucking word that they've eradicated it. Sure.
yeah, but it's like, I mean, you're basically saying like, well, look what this authoritarian dictatorship was able to do. They handled it so well. It's like, yeah, but any other time, that system of government is nowhere near as good as what we have here. So it's like you can't always have it be the best. Like, yes, individualism is like the biggest thing to Americans, and unfortunately, that means that people are going to get sick more, but you can't just change the system of government because all of a sudden you're worried about being sick.
Yeah, I think that wearing a mask should not be a political issue. I hate that people make it a political issue, and I hate that people act like it's so hard to fucking wear a mask and walk down the street. Like it's not. I promise you, you'll survive. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. It's annoying, but just fucking suck it up. It's not that big of a deal,
Well, I
and
don't.
it's the least you can do.
I went to Walmart with a mask, and then I started feeling lightheaded, and I woke up in the ER, and they were like, "Yeah, the mask was killing you." You know.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, man, I think that people just have to get used to the fact that this is going to be our new normal, probably until I would say December. Even if there is a vaccine that's created soon, it's still going to take time to produce enough vaccines for everyone, and obviously they're going to go to the people that actually have it first. So people are just going to have to suck it up until then. And for the past couple of months, I've been working in a clinic that while we ourselves didn't do the coronavirus testing, uh, we had nurses in our clinic that did. And it's like there are just so many uncertainties about it. Everybody experiences different symptoms. Some people are just completely asymptomatic when they have it. Some people get like full respiratory failure when they get it. You could have antibodies. So even if you get an antibody test, there's no guarantee that you have it or have had it. You could get the antibodies just from having the flu or the common cold or strep, or so many different things. We call it a false positive for an antibody test. So it's incredibly difficult to tell who has it, who has had it, and who who is at risk of getting it. There's just so many uncertainties about it, that I think that, like I said, like the best thing people can do is just suck it up and deal with it for the next little bit of time, because this is going to be it until there's a vaccine.
Well, one thing with me personally that, I guess what I can't, uh, I have friends that they're not going to watch this or anything, but it's like they're very, very like, oh, we need to be locked down. People can, they should just work from home, blah, blah, blah. But it's like these are white collar friends that I have, right? They don't actually, one of them does, I believe, own a business. They just don't really do anything with it. Like it's just an LLC kind of thing. But it's not like they're working a job that can't be worked from home. Like it's hard to operate a tower crane from your living room, right? It's kind of difficult to be running a business, a small business from home, right? And even if like there are some cases where they've gone after people who are just selling things online because supposedly businesses were supposed to be closed. Right? Now like I basically don't give a shit. Like I'm going to like I don't look to other people for what is moral or not. Like there's clearly no problem with me operating my business, so I'm going to continue to do so. Right? Um but I find my friends saying these things and it's like dude, there's no way that they would be pushing for a complete lockdown if they were in my position.
Yeah, I think it's really ignorant for people to act like they can just shut everything down. Like you can't. Like I already think at the rate we're going, we're probably going to enter another recession within like the next year if this keeps up. If they completely shut down the country like they did for that specific, I don't remember. I don't even remember how long it was. It wasn't. It was only for like a month or two, but like it got bad. A ton of businesses shut down, and
And they're
it's
not
like,
coming back.
yeah, they're not coming back. Like they're done. The damage is already done to them. They're in debt from it and stuff like that. Like you can't just shut down an entire country for months and months and months and just expect it to be okay. Like the government can just keep printing money all they want, but all it's going to do is just inflate. They have to keep things moving. Like I think where we're at right now is about as good as it's going to get. Right, wear mask in public, limit how close you are to other people, let restaurants and stuff be open, but for pickup type stuff, or like specific separated dining areas, and just like I said, suck it up. This is the best we're gonna get, so we have to make do.
The only problem, the reason that I think people are anti-mask is because they don't like that people are trying to use the government to force them to wear the mask. Um, and it's like at the golf course that I work at, they don't require like you're not forced to wear a mask. And it's interesting. Like there was somebody who 2 days ago or something had asked, "Hey, do we have to wear a mask inside?" And I said no, and he's like, "Oh man, I love this place." Kind of like he was like really excited about it, but it's like it's more about not being forced to do it than not like they don't necessarily have a problem with the mask. They have a problem with being forced to wear the mask. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think personal freedom is important. I also think that caring for your common man is important. I think that is realistically there shouldn't be any laws in place to force you to wear a mask just in public. However, if you're going to a high density area or like a private business, then I think those private businesses are fully within their right to say like, hey, if you're going to shop in this Walmart, you have to wear a mask. If you're going to come in this American Eagle store, you got to wear a mask. But if you're just walking down the street, just have one with you and don't wear it. But like so our main street in town has been closed off, so they can have like dining in the street to like help businesses and stuff like that. If you're going to Main Street, like that place is fucking popping right now. just wear a fucking mask because you're gonna, if not for other people, do it for yourself because you're gonna be around a ton of fucking people in a tourist town, so they're gonna be from all over the fucking country, right? If you want to go mow your lawn without a mask, sweet, do it. That's on you, whatever. But as soon as you start going into like private businesses, then I think that they should have the say of you wear a mask or you don't shop here.
Well, the funny thing that I've found to that point is you'll have people who are like, no, the government can't force me to do anything. It's my property, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, if there's a small business that requires that they wear a mask, they'll sit there and be like, I'm not going to wear the mask. It's like, but that's their property. Like, you know, um, you know, but yeah, like, it's, it's one of those things that I find to be incongruent, like, as far as like positions go.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, it's like the same thing as wearing a seatbelt. Like, yeah, sure, it's your car, but when you get in a car accident and you're not wearing a fucking seatbelt and your body goes flying through your front window shield and gets splattered on the pavement, then that becomes somebody else's problem, right? Where
Right.
you wear your fucking seatbelt because you're supposed to. Just if you're supposed to wear a mask, just wear a fucking mask. Like it's not the end of the world. It's not gonna fucking harm you in any way. Now, there are people that it can, but even then, like I don't think that if you have asthma, I don't think wearing a mask is gonna affect you that much, right? Like me personally, like when I'm at work, wearing a surgical mask or an N95 or anything like that, like you have a vital called pulse ox, which is pretty much how much oxygen your blood is carrying, how well you're breathing, stuff like that, right? If I put on an N95 mask, it's not going to affect my pulse ox any. My body is still breathing oxygen as well as it should be. I think a lot of people just don't like the sensation of being like in a mask. I don't know, maybe it makes them feel like claustrophobic or something. But again, it's just one of those things like just suck it up. Like you'll get used to it. The body is fucking amazing at adapting, and I promise you, you will. Don't turn into political statement acting like it's a fucking barcode at Auschwitz or something. Like it's a fucking mask.
Well, one thing I will say that is absolutely horrific that I've personally experienced is if you buy those blue um, MYNTZ like mince containers at Trader Joe's, and you have those in your mouth and you start talking with a mask on, your eyes will water from the horrific assault that those mints will do to them.
You're really brave. Yeah, I respect that. Um, but yeah, man. I said it at the beginning when coronavirus just started kicking off, and I'll still say it now. The problem the problem isn't the coronavirus itself. The problem is the issues it causes pretty much every aspect of our life, right? If
Mm-hmm.
coronavirus gets too crazy, stuff like New York happens everywhere where hospitals are just fucking outright, you know, uh, too busy. People aren't getting the care they need. They have to set up like hospitals in the streets and stuff like that. You know, our economy takes a giant hit when people aren't able to go and circulate money through the economy like they do. Um, they're just it's not the virus itself, obviously. Yes, people die from it, but it's got a very low mortality rate. And on top of that, like it's got a very low like actual infection rate. The majority of people that have had it or will have it probably won't feel anything more than like feeling kind of shitty and if even that.
That's what happened with me, just a fever. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even a
It,
bad fever. It was like 100 and something.
yeah. Really everybody's just got to fucking buckle down and just accept that this is it, for the next little bit. Hopefully we get back to normal, but I mean, who fucking knows, right? It's 2020. This year's been great already, so
Yeah. Dude, have you seen the meme of like the I think it's from, oh my god, what's it, the Joker movie or whatever, where he's looking at like the TV and then his like smile turns to a like unhappy face. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so. No.
Basically, he's looking at this monitor and people put different things on the monitor, right? And it says like, 11:59 p.m., December 31st, 2020. And then the next one shows, January 1st, 0000,
Yeah.
2020 part
okay.
2.
I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Like you know that it's going to happen. Like, dude, the election's going to be wild, man. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, this is going to be a crazy next couple of months. That's for sure. Dude, I'm so not looking forward to everything.
Oh yeah. Dude, I'm genuinely, like, this is probably going to sound like alarmist or something, but I'm genuinely, it's like a genuine relief to me that my left-wing friends like are armed. Like, I genuinely worry about them when they're living in the suburbs next to a big city. Like, even though they don't think the riots will ever end up in their suburb, like, I'm not so confident. And so, like, Jesus, man, like, I'm just glad that they have something to defend themselves compared to other people who literally have no way to defend themselves.
Yeah, I will say that, like, with everything that's been going on, the political unrest over everything, there's been a ton. Whether you want to, you want to make it, George Floyd, or just like the election, or really anything, just like the systematic just bullshit we have to put up with. I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that, like, the only person that you can really rely on is yourself,
Right.
and you have to take your own protection into your hands. You can't sit there and say, like, "Well, I'll just let the police do it." Like no, whether you don't trust the police, you don't like the police, or you just understand that they're more than a call away. Like, they're a call away, and then an indiscriminate amount of time away. That you
Other
probably
than
don't have.
Other than like a deterrent value, the police don't prevent crimes. They help you after there's been a crime. Well, if the crime is your entire family being like slaughtered, that's a problem. Right? Like, am I the only one who sees that as a problem? Like, if the crime that happens is something really awful, it doesn't really matter if the police are there to help you after the crime. Like, right?
Yeah, essentially.
I don't know.
Like, I'm not saying we should go back to, like, Wild West times, but, like, I think more people should be armed. Like, I think, like, we have the ability to own guns, and to carry them, and to protect ourselves and other people. Like, why would you not? Like, you don't have to like guns to understand that they're a necessity for protection, right?
Especially if you don't live in a big city where the cops are like right around the block.
Well, even and especially in big cities, like, big cities have much higher crime rates, right?
Yeah, but
Like,
the police response time is faster, so I think people feel like there's less need.
yeah, I guess it's kind of a trade off for that. But, like I want to get my concealed carry license, like, as soon as possible, because I start college in a couple weeks, and I'm allowed to carry on campus.
That's
Like, why the
awesome.
fuck would I not?
Yeah. You get a bad grade on a test.
No, Jesus fuck.
um, yeah, no,
I think the
like,
ATF just started listening to this.
yeah. I get some notification about from the NSA. Yeah, no, like it's. I would definitely agree with you, but it's like, it really is like there's validity to the argument against, for example, like teachers being armed, right? Like, there are crazy teachers, right? But I still feel, if you're worried about school shootings, having somebody else on campus that's armed is a fantastic thing, right?
For sure. Well, and to counter that point, right? And people use this for just about everything, but, like, crazy teacher that's legally armed and a crazy teacher that's illegally armed are the same thing, right? A crazy teacher with a gun. The difference is other teachers will have guns. I don't think it should be required. I think it's one of those things that if you as a teacher don't want to carry a gun, then that's your prerogative, right? But I think teachers that want to carry guns and can carry guns should be able to.
Yeah, I would lean towards that position personally. But again, I live in Arizona, right? Like there literally in Arizona, I think once you're 18, now it's different, I believe, with pistols. I think you have to be 21 or something. But like you don't need a concealed carry license. Like you literally just can conceal carry. And there's no kind of like, oh well, you need to have a certain amount visible. It's like, no, like you can literally just put a fucking pistol in your pocket, you know?
Well, okay, so JTD Reptiles just said, I think an armed guard is better in my opinion, and that's true. But but at the same time, like an armed teacher and an armed guard aren't necessarily too different, right? Like an armed cop is probably different than an armed teacher, but if we're just talking like a security guard, our odds are they don't have much training, if any. And I think that if a teacher wants to carry a gun on campus, there should be a set guideline amount of training that they should go over. Like first, like a concealed carry class that teaches like the basics of firearm safety, usage, and shooting. And then on top of that, like a self defensive pistol course that teaches how to quickly use your firearm to protect yourself and others. And then on top of that, a some kind of course that covers like close quarters tactics. Because like if you're going to be in a school building, you're going to be engaging from short distances inside enclosed spaces.
With a
Those three
lot
things,
of with a lot of
with
places you don't want a bullet going.
yeah, I think those three things or should be like the minimum requirements to carry a gun. I think that there are people that would definitely do that if they could. Um, but at the end of the day, just having more armed people at a school is better. It doesn't have to be a guard. It doesn't have to necessarily be a teacher. It doesn't have to necessarily be like school police.
It can be the students.
No. Um, but it's like, well, and I think the armed guard thing is a difficult sell for a lot of school districts because that's one more person they have to pay, right? But if the teachers do it, then they might, I don't know, they can do like an incentive for it or whatever. But I think the incentive should be like the safety of you and your students, realistically, right? It shouldn't be up to the school district. It should be up to individuals.
Right. I honestly think that in a lot of cases it should be left up to the individuals. And it's one of the things that Trump has done well, while the media would say otherwise. I don't care what they say. The number of situations where he hasn't used federal authority that he actually has, and he's left it to states, is fantastic. But it also, in my opinion, has been a disaster for the Democrats because the Democratic governors and stuff are allowing all of these riots. And while a lot of people are not aware of them because they're either not very up to date on politics or they don't live in the areas where it's happening, there are a lot of people who literally they live there. So it doesn't matter if the media talks about it or not because there's literally people lighting fires outside their apartment complex, right? And so it's hard to blame that on Trump when it's the governors and stuff that are the ones that are allowing all that.
Yeah, I think Portland is such a fucking shit show, dude. Like that's like it's fucking insane because you have these rioters, not protesters, right? They're I think the people that are protesting peacefully and actually using their rights is fucking awesome. Like no matter what you wanna fucking protest, if you do it peacefully and you do it properly, fucking hats off, bro. But these rioters, right? They try to tear down and destroy federal buildings, and then the mayor and the governor are just like, yeah, fuck it, let it happen. They're fucking protesting, right? And then you have Trump that says like, hey, this is not okay. You need to fix it, and they pretty much tell him no. So he sends in federal agents, and they start comparing it to a fucking police state. It's like, no,
It's
if
a
you would just
federal
control your
fucking
own cities,
courthouse.
yeah,
It's
if you
their
control your own cities
oh,
and deal with these issues yourself, we wouldn't have to bring in federal police to deal with it, right?
Right, and the
It
thing
could
is,
have been solved at step 0 before we got to step 20.
they're defending a federal courthouse. Like, you're literally saying, it's like me saying, Chase, you are literally an occupying army in your house. What is your fucking problem? It's like, what do you mean? It's my house, right? It's the same thing. Although, just one thing, because this guy's gonna run. My friend asks if he wanted me to ask you if you think that there should be more armed teachers or armed guards.
So it's like I said. I think that armed guards are a tough sell for a lot of school districts, right? Because a lot of school districts, especially in areas that have more crime, don't have a lot of extra funds, and having to hire an armed guard uh, is probably like a non possibility for a lot of school districts. Now, if it's one of those things where the local police will station, one or two people, I think there should be at least two. I think having one armed guard at a school is stupid because that's who they're going to target first, and once they're gone, there's no one else, right? So I think there should be at least two. They can be armed guards, armed teachers, armed police, whatever. If the police want to, volunteer to station officers at that school, that's fucking great. Do it. It doesn't have to be teachers.
The
But
the
I still,
benefit of teachers is that you don't necessarily know which ones are armed.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I think no matter what the solution to the problem is, I think teachers should be allowed to if they want to and if they have the proper training. And that's
Yeah,
the stance on it.
cool. Um, on the courthouse thing, I definitely think, I don't know, man. I personally have more faith in the average American than other people seem to, in that, like, I don't think people are stupid. And I think that people are going to be able to figure out that they're being lied to on some of this stuff. Like, even if you look on Reddit, when the George Floyd body cam stuff got leaked, I believe, like, the top comment was saying, like, yo, basically, like, we've been lied to. Like, if you look at this, like, George Floyd the whole time was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, even when he's sitting in the back of the cop car, right? And while that doesn't necessarily make a difference legally, which some people, I believe, are making the mistake of thinking that it actually would impact it, it does make a huge difference in, like, the whether or not it's understandable, whether it's just some kind of cold-blooded killing. It's like the guy the guy is saying the whole time that he can't breathe. It's kind of like a crying wolf thing. And I don't think George Floyd was making it up. I think he genuinely, like, felt that way, but it doesn't change the fact that he could breathe perfectly fine then.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. That's a tough subject. I've seen a lot of different things. Some people were talking about he had like drugs in his system, and the stress of the situation mixed with the drugs caused like some kind of like heart attack or something like that. I don't know, man. I wasn't there. I didn't see the body. Like I'm not a fucking coroner. But realistically, in our training, that's the first thing we're taught, right? Like if you can say I can't breathe, then you can breathe, right? It might be impaired, and if his airway was impaired and it was the cop's fault, then like still like 100% that cop was in the wrong, right? It was an improper holding technique. Like it shouldn't have happened either way. Um, but yeah, man, I don't know. Like it's tough to say.
Like, my
I
understanding is if somebody's choking, like if they're coughing and saying that they can't breathe, you should let them continue to try to cough it out, because somebody who's actually, like, choking can't make any noise or something like that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, the takeaway from that situation is like, regardless of whatever happened, whether it was like drug and stress related, like um, heart failure or something like that, or whether it was uh, like lack of oxygen, the cop was still 100% in the wrong. He definitely they should have done more. Uh, I guess more like, what's the word? They should have been more careful, right? Like like it's one of those things like uh yeah, like you said in chat, pretty sure he died from a heart attack. That's what I heard too. Um, and it was because of like the drugs in the system and the stress of the situation. But they should have been a little bit more proactive, right? Like
When they
if
said they can't find his pulse, that's probably a good time to get off his neck.
yeah, yeah, oh, definitely. Well, and even then, I mean, it's like fuck, dude. Like, if you're gonna have somebody in your custody, you want to make sure you're doing everything possible. Where if they die in your custody, there is no possible way that it is in any way your fault, right?
Right. Although I will
And
say
they didn't do that.
the the other cops were like all rookies, and so they were deferring to the guy who had 17 years experience or whatever. And so I definitely don't think that they're guilty of murder at all. And I know plenty of people would disagree with me on that. I don't really care. That's fine. But if you're like brand new on the job and somebody who's been doing it for 17 years is telling you that you're wrong, it's it's actually probably unreasonable for you to just assume that you're right and try to overrule them.
Yeah, um, yeah, man. No matter if it was like negligence or accidental or whatever. I think the cops should have done better. But I will agree with one thing is that police need more training, man. They fucking need more training. They should like I feel like probably jujitsu is probably like the best option in terms of like a martial art that translates well to police work because it's jujitsu is all about like disabling your opponent rather than like hurting them, you know. But I definitely think that like up to some level of proficiency in jujitsu should be like a standard for like police academies. You know, it's fucking dumb that they expect these people to like uh to to be in situations where they're in danger and not have something to fall back on. I was actually watching a podcast with a former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willenick.
Willink
I
or
think
something
I
like that?
pronounced Willink, yeah. He kind of touched on it better, probably better than I could ever say it. But he's like, if you're in a situation where you might have to use your gun or you might have to use your fist, and you're not comfortable or you're not like proficient in some kind of martial art where you can use your fist. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to go straight to their gun.
Right. If you can't use something that's non-permanently damaging or runs that risk to stop someone, you're stuck. I think it was Joe Rogan or something, right? Like you're stuck hitting them until they get knocked out or something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So yeah, I definitely think that those cops fucked up, regardless of whatever happened. I think that they did things improperly. I think that it brought. I mean, I always knew because I have friends that are cops, but it's like it brought more attention to the fact that like these guys need more training. They don't need to be defunded. They don't need to, like whatever. You don't need to disband police. They need more training.
defunding is the stupidest fucking argument ever. It's like if you're saying, I think Tim Pool made this analogy. It's like if you're like, oh, our Medicare system or whatever, has a lot of problems. It's like, okay, well, let's just stop having a Medicare system
Yeah,
or Medicaid or whatever it'd be called. Like it's like
just get rid of the system instead of fixing the problems in the system, right?
yeah, isn't that like throwing the baby out with the bathwater or whatever that like saying is?
I've never heard that saying, but I like it.
That's interesting. I've heard that a bunch. And my understanding is that yeah, it's like you're throwing out everything because there's some problem or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I would say let's let's call it a podcast here and just continue a lot of this next week.
yeah, definitely. Once 50's back, we can get into some other stuff and see his opinions. And since you said he has a psych degree, then he might have some better insights and stuff than even I do. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, anything else you wanted to say?
No, no, it was fun, man. I enjoyed it. Hopefully next week we'll have a bit of a bigger audience and have some more interaction with them. But yeah, no, I had fun.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. Hopefully that was informative, entertaining, all that. But yeah, so join us again next week and we'll continue this discussion. All right. Later, guys. Okay. Stream's ended.